All right, Coach, one more time. Is it okay if we record the interview?
Absolutely.
Perfect. John, okay with you?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, this is Alex Peters from County Sports Zone. We're here with Coach Neil. Coach, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me on today. My name's Neil Gottlieb. I am the girls' Rockville High School varsity coach, and I've been coaching for a long time. The gray will indicate that. But so again, happy to be on and talk to you guys today.
Now, I know this, but for everybody watching, girls varsity, what sport?
Soccer.
All right, perfect. And how long have you been at Rockville?
This is my second year in Rockville.
Okay. So first and foremost, I think, unfortunately, and I've said this to the coaches beforehand, I don't want to ask about it, but I feel like we have to. Everybody's talking about it constantly. And I mean, it's the reason why we're not in person right now. So we wanted to first ask what your thoughts were on this pandemic.
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question. I think that, obviously it's a global pandemic. So it's something that every nation in the world is going through right now. And then as you start breaking it down to every continent, every country, to every state, to every county, to every zip code, I mean, it's affecting everyone. So, I think that what we're doing personally, as far as the pandemic and the mitigating steps that we're taking, I think are smart. I think we're doing all the right things. I think that it's clear that life and this pandemic is bigger than sports. And I think we all get that in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I never want to minimize the impact that sports and the lack of sports has had at all levels, from professional all the way down through youth recreational sports. Sports binds us. Sports is something that at the high school level, for me personally, I've been teaching high school level for a couple decades now. And, putting that jersey on, regardless of the sport, means something to the player. It binds them together, binds a community together. So yeah, this is bigger than sports, but it, we can't discount this amazing impact that this pandemic has had on the sports community.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where everyone we talk to, and I'm sure you feel the same way, it's better safe than sorry. We want to safety first,
Absolutely.
health and wellness first. With that being said, although that you are the girls varsity soccer coach, have you been in contact with your players during this time? And if so, how have you been able to kind of keep them motivated during the quarantine?
Yeah, so that's another really good question, because I think as a fall sports coach, obviously we're in a season now where a lot of my players and the program's players have been playing other sports, whether it was softball, lacrosse, or it was. So, but my philosophy has been for 20 some years is that as a varsity coach or as a coach, it's not just seasonal thing. So we don't just stop talking to our players when November hits and we're done. So my philosophy is to be their mentor, to be there for them 24/7. So we have, during the winter, we were doing winter workouts, and that obviously stopped. What we're doing now is the way we're keeping motivated is by individually motivating each other. So the team is very much online. We're on Twitter together. We're group chat, texting. We do a lot of challenges. So every week we do different challenges together, whether it's a timed mile, whether it's number of juggles, whatever it happens to be, we do challenges. And one of the most motivating things that kids like these days, or any day really, is food and prizes. So, if you win, I'll send an Uber Eats out and deliver lunch to the winner. So, we stay very much active and engaged. And I think everyone understands. I mean, as a program, we had success last year. Opportunities exist for next year. And we don't know what fall sports is going to look like. But at the end of the day, we can control what we can. And that is keeping our fitness up there, nutrition, sleep, all the controllables we've really been talking a lot about. So that's what we've been doing. And we pretty much talk on a daily basis. And my team knows that, I'm an over communicator anyway. But during this time, certainly it's been very important to have, especially adults, and to make sure that these kids are okay. Checking in with them individually and as a group has been really, really super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'd like to touch on the last thing you just said. Although although as the coach and the mentor of the team, this is something, doesn't matter how old you are, this is something that's never happened before. We've never
Yeah.
had sports shut down on a level like this ever before. So even though this is the first time for everyone, it's the leadership and like you're saying, the mentorship to be able to reach out to these players and make sure that mentally they're okay.
Yeah.
Stuck inside with the family all day and, whatever the case may be. But the what we've come to realize and what I've come to realize my entire life playing sports is competition breeds the best out of everyone. So
Yeah.
what if we can compete on whether it's a small scale or a large scale, it doesn't matter. It's being able to compete, I think, is something that I like to do on a daily basis.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that the spirit of competition, whether it's again for a prize of food or in our case, it's that plus the fact that we know what's possible in the fall. If we are going to hit the field, we know that the most conditioned, most fit, the most motivated, inspired team is going to be the one to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if everyone's ready for that, whenever we get the green light to play, and of course the benefit of all of that is, if for some reason we didn't have a full season, whatever ended up happening, if the worst case scenario is that you come out of it being healthy and fit and you feel good about yourself and you're confident about how you feel, then that's a win.
Yeah, it's still a plus. Now, Coach, I have a super unfair question, and I want to preface in that. All right.
Sure.
I know it's not fair. We know it's not fair. However, we came up with the question because we want to see different coaches' perspectives and different ideas that maybe can arise just from asking. So, if we put you in charge of handling coming back to school or starting sports back up, how would you go about it? So again, I know it's unfair. I know there are a lot of things, we don't have all the science, we don't have all the numbers, the facts,
Yeah.
but we figure we might hear some really good ideas, and maybe somebody watching it, maybe the superintendent watches it,
Well,
they come out with this idea.
I tell you, of course, soccer should be the first sport to come back, right? So, all kidding aside, I mean, I really think that it's. I think it's a fair question because I think people are going to say this term. You've heard it a lot over the past 3 months. It's follow the science.
Mm-hmm.
So as we learn more about this virus, we learn more about how it's transmitted, which then leads us to make better decisions once we get back to playing sports. So if in fact physical contact with your hands on a soccer ball doesn't necessarily lead to transmission of the virus, or being outside, generally speaking, does not transmit as easily as being inside, then you would look at sports, and you want to be fair and equitable to all sports, obviously, but you look at sports that would have the least impact on how the game is played and how that virus can be transmitted, and minimizing that in general. I would not recommend wearing masks playing a sport. I'd rather not put masks on one of my players who have to run, and it's a very high intensity, high cardiovascular, respiratory rate gets high. I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. You almost rather not be in those circumstances. But if I was starting up, I would look sport by sport. I would really focus on those sports. And I wouldn't necessarily rank them in high risk or low risk or medium risk. I would rank them as what is the science telling us is the most important or the easiest way this virus is being transmitted. Start there. I would start in small groups. I would get going as quickly as possible once the county, especially here in Montgomery County, we're still haven't reached phase 1 yet. But once we do, I would recommend small groups and seeing how that goes, and ensuring that the players adhere to whatever physical distancing that you possibly can. I don't call it social distancing because I don't think that's what this is anymore. This is staying physically distant, because what the science is telling us is that within 6 feet, a sneeze, a cough can transmit it. So I think what we do is we do follow the science. We follow the sports. We look at the ways to mitigate it the best we can. Yet at the same time, let's not get in the way of the beauty of the sport. Let's make sure the sport can be played. If the sport cannot be played to which it's intended to be played in a competitive environment, I'm not talking about pre-game high-fiving players or post-game shaking hands. That stuff we can do away with. I'm talking about the true environment of a game where there's no rule that says you need to then not have contact for more than 2 seconds. Then you're really disrupting the game in a way that it's almost best to not play it. So I think you follow the science, you get back into it in a gradual way. You look at those sports that potentially present lower risk, and you go from there. I have a saying that I think we've been, and this may be a very very controversial saying, but we are so scared right now, and almost we're so afraid of catching this virus that we're afraid of living and playing. So it's like we want to get out and do something, but then we're being held back. So I encourage us to follow the science, listen to what the health experts are telling us in the state, and then once we get the green light, to be able to go out all out in the sport in which we love.
Mm-hmm. And I agree almost 100% with what you're saying. I think that I don't think you're saying is controversial because I think it's true. We are scared. I think, and this might be controversial, and I don't know, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think that we, as a whole, I think that we don't have all the information on a person to person basis. So that's why we're more scared and more
Sure.
misinformed about things, and that's why we're scared to go outside. But my philosophy on this, rather safe than sorry. I do actually have a thought. I don't think it would work, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Do you think we could see something where we push fall sports to spring sports, and we have an overlap of, instead of the season by season that we see, so soccer, football, field hockey are fall sports. Could something happen where we end up pushing them to the spring, and end up something like that? That way we don't lose an entire
Yeah.
season. I think it would be harder to do, but it would be interesting. It was,
Yeah.
as a soccer coach, is that something that you would like? Not like. Is that something that, if needed to happen, would you be okay with that, or would you rather just cancel the season?
Well, and I think every coach would answer the question this way: that whatever we have to do to not cancel the season. So that should be full stop there.
Mm-hmm.
To your question, would we play in the spring? I think it goes back to what I said a moment ago, that the science and the fact that the virus may take a similar path that influenza takes, we can bring this exact same conversation in the spring.
Yeah.
Until there's a vaccine, we may be dealing with the same conversation. So pre-vaccine, your question is valid. Do we wait? Would I wait? Of course, other than canceling a season. I think if you're going to do that and push sports to the spring, you have some, obviously, infrastructure issues, field space, a bunch of other things that you have to deal with. But you also have indoor sports versus outdoor sports. So what sports do you move? Do you keep in outdoor sports and maybe extend the season, start it a little bit later, extend it into close to Thanksgiving, and then just do a full stop there when the virus is expected, or any virus, influenza and others, expected to come back? So yeah, absolutely. I would 100% be open to any suggestion outside of canceling. I think canceling, I go back to, I think about all the seniors that I've coached over the years, and I think about those players and the opportunities they have, but also think about the underclassmen, the sophomores, the juniors, the ones with this amazing. We have some incredible talent on our team right now that are current sophomores, current juniors, of course our seniors as well, but I'm talking the underclassmen, that missing an entire season. Now you're talking disadvantage as they start planning for college opportunities, and that's a problem, because club soccer is changing as well, and they're going through the same thing that high school soccer is going through. So yeah, anything but canceling.
Yeah, and I yes, that is how every coach will answer that question, and I do apologize for wording it so terribly.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
think
question.
the biggest concern for that idea in general would just be, what would you do for the two sport athletes, the soccer, lacrosse,
Yeah.
softball players? I think if something would happen and we move the fall sports to spring sports, I think you then need to, and I don't know logistically how it would work, but then I think you move the spring sports to summer sports, and
Yeah.
basically allow them to play almost a travel league, but it's a high school.
Yeah, and that's all possible too. I think, again, any scenario that opens up that players play,
yeah, and
all about it.
it all depends. Basically, it's what you're saying. It's, we don't know, and it's pre-vaccine. until something happens and we resolve the virus as a whole, we're just going to be, we just won't know.
Yep, you're right.
So now we get to hop into the fun stuff. At least what I think is more fun. We get to talk sports and less about the virus. So we want to know what type of coach are you? So what are some of your philosophies on coaching, and maybe what are some things that you preach to your players?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that. It's better than talking about a deadly virus, right? I mean, I think, all kidding aside, I think it's nice to really talk about the sport. It's funny. If you asked me that question 20 years ago, my answer would be different. My coaching philosophy has changed over the years significantly. You still never get away from the fact that you want to win and you're building a winning program. But I use the word program by intent because my coaching philosophy is actually a program philosophy. At Rockville High School and the programs I've coached at before, it's all about coaching. You're just as good as your JV team, and they need just as much attention, and same with the middle school. So we spend a lot of time, the coaches spend a lot of time at the middle school. That feeds into Rockville High School. I go to their tryouts, I go to their meetings, I go to their practices and games. I'm very connected at the 8th grade level. Then at the JV level, we have the best coaches and the best program there. It's not just one of those programs where, we're just kind of pushing them to the side and just hoping that they're okay and we can get a few of them up to varsity. No, everyone has a chance on the JV team to prove their abilities and their skills and their desire to then play up. We took several players up last year towards the end of the varsity season after JV was done. And then we took about 7 or 8 into the playoffs this last season. And those are all players who worked hard and showed tremendous attitude and effort. So again, my philosophy has always been, you put a winning program together, you build from the middle school up through JV, up through varsity. You build a culture of accountability, players who are 100% willing to give everything that they can. And those players that as soon as they step across that line, truly believe they're the best players on that field and are confident, not cocky, confident enough to get out there and demonstrate that what they have learned throughout practice, they have absolutely been able to execute in a game environment. So it's changed over the years, my philosophy. I remember being a club coach many, many years ago, ODP coach and such. So, you're always going to want to win games. You want to build that program. But now it's truly a program philosophy, not just a coaching philosophy.
I really like that. And I've spoken with a lot of coaches since I started working at County Sports Zone, and that's the first time that I've heard any varsity coach talk about their JV level like that, and even the middle school level. It's it comes down to the old saying, you can't build a house from the roof down. You have to build it from the foundation up. So, and that makes 100% sense to me. Now, when we're talking about and another thing I want to note that you said is when those players step across the line, and I was a baseball guy, so I played baseball growing up and throughout college. So when we step over the foul line and onto the field, when the girls step onto the field, you can't. I wholeheartedly believe that you cannot succeed if you're not confident in your ability on a task. So whatever that is, if that's the corner kick, that you can put the corner kick where you need to put it so she can go up and head it in. If it's the throw in, you can throw it 15 yards but not 16 yards. Whatever it may be, if you are not confident in your ability to do that task, you won't succeed. And what I've found in my experience is coaches that preach that from the practice level to the games, the walkthroughs, whatever it may be, those are the coaches that get the most out of their players.
Agreed.
So
thanks for that.
Absolutely. John, do you have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, Coach. When it comes to the players being leaders both on and off the field, are you looking for the seniors to be the leaders, or does it not matter what class they are in, just as long as they are players that the others should be looking up to?
Yeah, so I absolutely love that question for a lot of reasons. First, a leader doesn't have to be a senior. However, my philosophy of the seniors, it's their team. And so there's two different things here, and we'll get to that. So when I say it's their team, I involve them from the tryout process all the way through game planning, whatever it happens to be, because at the end of the day, I want them looking back on their season as a success and that they had ownership in it. Okay, so that's the senior part of it. I also take freshmen on varsity. I'm not afraid to do that. If a freshman has the ability and skill to play, I'll take a freshman. If that freshman also happens to be a motivation and an inspiration to the team, they're a leader and they can be a captain. We had a freshman captain 2 years ago. So it's less relevant about the class. It's more relevant if they bring the two things every day to practice and games. It's attitude and effort. If they bring both of those things constantly and they drive themselves and they get mad at themselves out in the field, they give them, they never get too high, too low. They help inspire those that are struggling. And they help me as a coach because I don't have an assistant coach by intent. And so I look to my players and those leaders to see what's going on in the field. I'm an old goalkeeper. Okay. So I played my whole life through college and I see the field from the back forward. So sometimes it's nice to be able to get that perspective, even though I've been coaching a long time, still need that perspective from the team. So again, it's leadership characteristics and qualities, not age and grade.
I like that. Now, I have a question that I've always wondered, and I think I know your answer beforehand, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So now, you talked about having a freshman captain, and I absolutely love that because I have the same mentality. It doesn't matter. You expect your seniors to lead because they've been there, but you don't. They don't have to be the only leader. So, if as the soccer coach and as soccer as a sport, if you have a freshman who may be borderline on terms of ability and skill level for varsity, but you're not sure how much time they'll really get, are you going to keep them on JV to get more reps versus actual play time versus on varsity where they might not play as much?
So I like that question a lot because I'm going to give you an answer you probably haven't heard a lot because it's and this is something I've learned from my coaching mentors. The best thing you can do is communicate with the player. So if they're on the edge, now, if you have a freshman player that's on the edge, I would always err on the side of bringing them up because that's my job is to coach and develop them. They're probably already playing club if they're being even looked at that level of varsity. Mm-hmm. So they're probably getting a lot of playing time and a lot of field time. But the most important thing is communicating with the player. The second thing is, and again, very much unusual from a coaching perspective, is I'll also talk to parents. So if there's been several situations over the years, I can't even count them. There's been so many where I've talked to the player, had the conversation about what the expectation is for them and their role on the team based on the depth chart that I see. Okay. Then have a conversation with the parents and say, this is what I am envisioning. I'd like you to have a conversation with your daughter as well. And then come to me with an answer. You can start on JV. It's the same philosophy. Everyone that's going to watch this, every sport is going to have the same concept of, you can play and start on JV and play 100%, or you're gonna sit and learn and watch from the bench most of the time on varsity. And really, that because I don't know the kids, especially at that age as well, it's really up to them. Because if I'm offering that up and I'm saying you fit the mold, I can see you being an amazing varsity player, but on the depth chart you're not going to be starting. You may not even be off the bench. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? Now, the reason I involve the parents in that is because what freshman is going to say? Well, sure, coach, I want to be on varsity. I want to wear that uniform and play under the lights. Yeah. We also have such a strong JV program that if they choose that direction, they're not choosing a year of being ignored by varsity and never having the opportunity to prove themselves. So there are a lot of options up in the air that I truly, with the situation that you're specifically describing, I truly leave it up to the player and parent to have that conversation. As long as you're honest and open with the players and you communicate exactly what that's going to look like, then you can't lose. Mm-hmm. And you're not worried about them, because I have over the years. I mean, I think I mentioned I've learned over the years so much. One of the things I learned is one of the worst things is looking behind you on the bench and seeing some sad faces out there. I have a 24-year-old daughter who played high school soccer and through college, and definitely one of those situations where I empathize with the female athlete, and I empathize with any athlete having to sit on the bench. But given the opportunity to communicate honestly, the decision has, since I've started doing that many years ago, it's never been a wrong choice.
Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm excited about is because when we first spoke, I think that this is going to be a great opportunity for whether it's players, whether it's other coaches throughout the state of Maryland watching these interviews. I think the biggest thing is, and what a lot of people don't understand, but if you're looking from a player's perspective on what you just said, that freshman player now gains not only respect, but then trust in you as a coach.
Absolutely.
Because you're communicating with them. Especially, we talk all the time. It's 14 to 18. We're talking age of the high school athletes now,
yeah.
Right? So as a 14-year-old, and they may even be a young, they might be a 13-year-old coming up to play soccer, but they understand that you're going to communicate with them and be honest, and that goes a long way for people who don't understand that goes a long way for these athletes. So
100%. And that's what, and when they do come to you, because they will inevitably, because I do mid-year reviews and, process, but they will ask again, because they are 14, 15-year-old kids, and they'll say, how can I get more playing time? Mm-hmm. We will have that conversation again, because I respect that emotion. I expect the competitiveness of that person, because there have been situations where, and every coach watching this, and any coach should tell you this, we've all made mistakes, right? So we've either not brought up the player or brought up a player that maybe needed more time on JV, or that throughout the 2 months from August preseason all the way through, let's say, late September, we identify that maybe there is an opportunity there where someone can get some playing time. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the question when the kid asks it. And again, and you said it, and that's parenting too, and it's just life, right? I'm also I don't work for the school, by the way, so I'm not a teacher. I work outside, and I have employees that work for me, and it's the same philosophy as a parent, as a spouse, as a coach. You can't go wrong by being honest. I mean, it's not, you're not going to be hurtful. You're not going to, but you certainly are going to tell them exactly how you feel, and you're going to have them tell you how you feel, and you can agree to disagree and move forward. But honesty, man, it's a cliche, but it truly is the best policy. And in sports, there's no other way to do it, in my opinion.
And I agree 100%. I was a communications major in college, so I, just like you, you said at the beginning of the interview, I tend to side on the end of over communicating. It's always better to over communicate than under communicate. And we can talk from a coach's standpoint, a player's standpoint, a person's standpoint, whatever it may be. So easy question for you. Maybe not easy. Can you kind of tell us some of your favorite drills or favorite things to do at practice?
That is a good one. So there are a lot, as a goalkeeper, I love drills where there's opportunities to shoot on goal, right? So as much of that as we get in set plays, I love doing that, right? So that's just the fun part to me. And the players really love when you set up plays and you call them out, you give them names, and you execute on them in a game. There's actually very few more exciting moments when you actually call it out, they do it, and they look at you and say, we got this, so that's always fun to work on the set plays and the shooting and all that stuff. But it's interesting because when you go, high school coaches don't have to, but I did as a club coach and ODP coach, you get your license, and through the licensing process, they tell you sort of how to run a practice and the drills you do. So it's you start with fundamentals and you work into game-like type drills, and you move into more of the simulated game actual activities. So to answer your question also, I sort of like that end of practice. When you've worked on all the fundamentals, you go back to basics all the time. I always do. Sports is simple. You're a baseball guy. My son's a baseball guy. It's still hitting and throwing and batting. They're still getting the pros out there doing batting practice for a game, right? So you're still swinging the bat. Same thing goes with soccer. But it's that last part of practice where you're executing on true game-like situations that's really the most enjoyable for me to coach.
I love that, and I think it goes back to what we're saying, and it's those game-like scenarios at the end of practice is where you have the biggest opportunity to make some sort of competition or breed competition, whether you're doing an inter squad or an offense defense type of, you're matching them up and you're making them compete even if they don't realize that they're competing, which again I've said already, that's something that I really really enjoyed as a player, and look to hopefully when I then take my steps into the coaching realm. So
sure, yeah.
John, do you have anything? I don't want to continue to step on your toes here.
Not right now.
Okay. So Coach, I only have one more question for you.
Sure.
And we've talked a lot about your coaching philosophy, how you've been able to keep your players motivated, things like that. I just wanted to know, how have you been able to use quarantine to improve yourself, whether it's from a coaching standpoint or from a person standpoint?
Yeah, and I appreciate you ending on that question because several things. First, I'm a distance runner, so I've been able to get out and run a lot more and spend a lot more time outside and work on sleeping better than I have been, eating better and running. I hurt my knee back in the fall and was off for a little bit of time, so I've really taken advantage from a physical perspective to really hone back in on my running and enjoy that a little more. So that's been one thing. The second thing I've really enjoyed, so I have a wide range of kids, and my youngest is 13 years old, my oldest is 24, and they've all been home. My youngest obviously is home this whole time, but my older kids have been back and forth. So I've had an opportunity to spend time with them where I haven't actually had that opportunity for many years. So it's been wonderful to spend time. I think I'm driving my wife a little bit crazy being home this much, but because I typically do travel a lot outside of soccer season. But I have been able to spend a lot of very quality time with my family, learning to cook a few things a little bit different, which is new for me. For those who are going to see this, I grew out a goatee, which I'm sure my players, when they see us, are going to get some text messages about that one. But no, I just been really focusing on family, myself, keeping my business going, which is, knock on wood, so far it's been going very well under the circumstances. We've been very fortunate. So all has been good.
Well, that's great. Now, Coach, I don't have any more questions for you. Do you have anything for us?
So are you interviewing? So besides soccer, who else are you guys talking to out there?
So far we have interviewed girls varsity basketball, football defensive coordinator, and oh man, they're gonna kill. Varsity girls softball so far.
Oh, there you go.
We've been all over the place. I have a varsity baseball coach on the docket, and I'm looking for a boys varsity basketball.
Ah, okay. Let me send you an email on that.
Oh, please do. Players that would like to be interviewed, send them my way.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, the only ask I have is that when the season does start for soccer, keep an eye out for Rockville. I think it's going to be a great season. So look for us, and we're ready to go.
Coach, I can guarantee you, I can make you a promise that I will be down at Rockville covering at least one game. All right.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy. Health wishes to all your players and families at Rockville, and good luck.
Thank you. And back to you guys. Thanks for your time.
Take care.
I see you guys.